Allison's based on the end.
Yeah, I think that's in town.
That's where it's dropping her off.
My town has a condo.
No, contract.
Contract. with Allison's,
It was better than the first days of Allison staying up in Narragansett. Remember that, Jen?
No, I did not remember
Yeah.
that she ever stayed there.
Early on.
Okay.
I mean, beautiful building, but it was chilly in the winter. It was chilly.
Good afternoon. I want to officially call the meeting to order for the Planning Board for Wednesday, March 12th. Because of various circumstances, I am going to adjust the agenda. First of all, the Block Island Housing Board will not meet today. It will be continued until next month. Mark McGuire is off island and cannot get back. So we will have that scheduled in April. Second of all, for Historic District, that was advertised in the letter that went out for 4 o'clock. So we will do it, but at 4 o'clock. So I will just drop that down. So anybody who's here for HDC, please come back at 4, 4 o'clock. Okay, we have a date. I see no reason for you sitting here while we do this. So that will be fake. So we will start with the definitions of the prohibited uses, which is number 3 on the agenda. It says zoning ordinance, define uses in the list of prohibited uses that the ordinance does not offer a definition of. Welcome, Bill. And before we officially start, I would like to introduce Peter Friedrich. Good, I'm close. If that's it. He is our new town planner, and Bill is just what came in, and you've met everybody else on the board. So we are officially happy to welcome you. And if you'd like to say a couple words, press the little button there.
Actually, a couple of words, just hello and thank you for having me. It's a lovely town hall you have here and I've enjoyed spending the afternoon here. Look forward to working with you.
The early meetings.
It's Friedrich.
Racing around.
Some people are too smart for that. Okay. All right. General prohibitions. We want to start with page 1. Do we going to have Karen doing this? Okay.
Good.
I want to start with page 1 and go through. There are a number of things having to do with motor vehicles that we need to go through. There's Karen. Welcome, Karen. And have you met Peter, our new town planner?
Yes, I have. Nice to see you, Peter.
Okay. We were officially introducing him today since he came on the boat ride this morning and survived the day. Okay, we're going to start with general prohibitions. As I said to the group earlier, number 1 is continued to next month. And number 2, because it's advertised, we will do it at 4 o'clock as the paper said it was going to do. So we're starting with general prohibitions and I will turn it over to you. I thought we could go down page by page.
Sure. I think just a general overview, several of the definitions of terms do already exist in your ordinance, and we've noted that as such. So I think if, unless you disagree or any member of the board disagrees, I think it makes sense just to go through the ones that you don't have a definition of. Is that okay? Or do you want to revisit the ones that you do?
I do want to ask if there's any questions. So we could do it as you call each number. If the definitions are already in one of our ordinances or whatever, I don't think we need to do anything, but we will ask if there are questions just in case anybody has a comment. For example, I want to, for numbers 1 and 2, so mopeds are not listed, and I wondered whether you think we need to have them listed. So with that, I'll give it back to you.
Okay, so just to run through, we might as well go right through from the top. So subsection A, any questions on that one? Okay, number 1, that's the definition of motor vehicle. Is that the one that you were talking about, Margie?
That's the one I'm talking about, number 1. It has motors, it says including motorcycles, motorized bicycles, motorized tricycles, but it doesn't say anything about mopeds. And I don't know whether that belongs in there or not, but I just bring it up for questions. And then something else occurred to me, do we need to say anything about electric scooters, which is our other little issue?
So here's the thing about this particular definition. The proposed language that you see there that's underlined, starting with any motor operated vehicle, that's actually taken from your general ordinances, Town Code 12-1. So I generally would advise you to keep the same definition as in your general code.
Okay.
If you have to change or you feel really important about it, that's something I can look at.
No, I don't feel very important about it. I just wanted to make sure that, because I do know we have another section on mopeds. I just wanted to make sure that it should not be in the list, and that answers my question fine. So that's all I have on number 1. Anybody else got questions?
Not for number 1.
Okay.
Anything on 1A?
No,
Hearing nothing. 1B,
no,
1C.
yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sosha.
Big time.
Okay.
So the phrase that's in parentheses, I don't even understand what language that is.
You want to
You
read
got-
it just because people
It's,
on Zoom will not have a copy in front of
it says an open, unoccupied space on the same lot with the structure extending the full width of the lot and situated between the street line and the front line of the structure projected to the sidelines of the lot.
Crystal
have-
clear. So, and I'm kidding. No, these are all actually existing definitions from other areas of your zoning ordinance. In particular, it looks like section 202. So, unless you want to revise existing definitions, I would suggest no change to that language. And to allay any concerns or fears about the complexity of that language, that's why you pay Jen the big bucks, because she's in charge of understanding what that means and making sure it's applied appropriately.
Then I had a comment, and I wrote, illustration might help. For example, the house front can face in any direction on Block Island. Many homes don't have their front bordering a street. And
Yes.
that point has come up several times over the years. So I
Yes,
wanna-
and my guess would be that you probably have many homes, especially older homes, that have been constructed before setbacks. So that would mean that they wouldn't be conforming, or somebody could come before you and get a variance from that particular definition.
Okay, good enough.
Well, not, well, maybe before you, likely the zoning board.
Any other questions on page 1? Okay, Karen, page 2.
Moving on to number 2 on page 2. Any questions on tent? Number 3,
No,
4.
no.
Maybe
Um,
just mention what they are, Karen, because people will be looking at this on Zoom.
Oh,
So,
sure.
This
2
a
is
different-
2 is regarding a definition of tent.
Okay,
There
Then
is
the-
there is no current definition of tent, but you are in the process of enacting one. 3 is for the definition of accessory use home occupation, which you already have a definition for, along with mobile home, which you also have a definition for. It looks like you do not yet have a definition for trailer, but that is in the process of being approved. 4 has to do with floating resident or floating residence. That's a proposed definition. Also, no definition of floating business. There's one proposed. Moving down to number 5, small I, A, that you do have an existing definition of wall plane. 5.1B, there is an existing definition for plain building.
Yeah, I had a question about that. I wasn't sure what the following phrase meant. A building angle of 45 degrees or greater with a minimum distance of 16 feet from the building facade, blah, 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 blah. 45 degrees compared to what?
I'm gonna kick that one to Jen, because I know she has extensive experience interpreting and applying that particular building plane, wall plane calculation.
Please.
We have an appendix that has diagrams. to,
Okay.
like, Provide additional information.
Okay, that's good
That's the
enough.
short answer.
Good. That works.
Okay, any other
Great
questions
answer.
on page 2 before we go on?
Sorry, going back to, I think number 4, the floating residences or businesses, that was the first time we had no definition and we haven't worked on a definition, it's not in the works. Is that something we're expected to approve today? That was my understanding was. Yeah.
I'm not sure if we'll get to that point today, that would be
Okay.
wonderful. If we were able to approve the proposed definitions today, but just so you know, in terms of where we are and where we gotta go, yes, eventually you will be approving new definitions so that your general prohibitions, all those terms are defined. And so everybody understands the underlying language is the language we drafted as a definition. You're not stuck to that. We went to the planner's dictionary just to get you a starting point. Those are generally pretty good definitions, but we're happy to change them, make them better. So right now you're just reviewing everything. At some point you will need to approve it. I hope we would get there tonight. That'd be great, but that's, we'll see how far we get.
Karen, I think I'll send that definition to the harbor master, just to
Sure.
see if she has something in, the harbor management plan.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Send to Harbor Master, okay. Any other questions on page 2? Okay, and so everything else is okay. We'll send number 4 to the Harbor Master for an okay. All right, let's go on to page 3.
I'm just gonna make a note of that. Forgive me.
Karen?
Sorry, forgive me. I just want to make a note of that sending to Harbor.
Okay, I made
Got
notes
it.
too.
Sorry, I should have made that note a little quicker. So moving down, you're on subsection C on the following page. That would be for definition of building footprint, which does currently exist. The next one, D, there is an existing definition for floor area living. E, same thing as to an existing definition of building volume. And then you're on to 6, commercial car washes. There's no current definition. Any question on that one?
Okay, so
7,
so wait, so the definition you would want to be using is the use of a site for washing and cleaning passenger vehicles, recreation vehicles, and other light duty equipment.
yes, that's the language that we pulled.
Okay, that's so the people on Zoom will know what we're talking about.
Yes.
All right.
7, there's no current definition of gambling, so there is some underlying language there to consider. Same thing with gambling facility. Any questions on 7?
Yes, just a simple question. Is that why we no longer hold bingo at the firehouse? Is it now considered gambling?
That would be under your use code. I don't know the answer to that question. I'd have to compare that to your use table, but it sounds like it could be.
Yeah, as I said, I think there's, Molly, aren't they still doing bingo at the fire station?
We are not.
Not, okay.
But it's more related to the state police licensing process.
Ah, okay.
It is considered bingo, and therefore we can't have anyone under the age of 18 there.
Oh, okay.
You mean it is considered?
Yes, we are prohibiting gambling.
So how are the establishments that have Keno now going to?
So let me just.
That's why I'm trying to figure out how we want to word this so we don't run into problems with.
So the prohibition on gambling is like that, kids do raffle tickets for, like, you need to get a state police permit just to do a raffle or to play bingo.
Mhm.
Why are we prohibiting it if you already have to get an application from the state police? Like, when you do this, by the way I read this, you're gonna prevent a lot of fundraising from happening, right? So is that gambling if someone buys a lottery ticket and they can win a
Right.
cooler?
And I
So
don't
let's,
like it
so
either.
wait, let's stop there. So gambling or gambling facilities are already strictly prohibited under your ordinance. We're just defining what the definition of gambling would be.
Okay, then maybe we need to.
We're not changing what's allowed and not allowed.
Well, then I would take out bingo, Keno, and raffles.
No.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I hear you. And at the end, like third line up, it says, but not limitation.
Yeah.
Wondering if that should be, but not including. Cause then you've got bingo, keno, raffles. So that would exempt
Yes.
them. Change
Okay.
limitation
All right,
to.
Molly's got a comment.
Yeah.
Just.
Hi, Molly O'Neill, Pilot Hill Road. I don't have a copy of what you're looking at in front of me, but could you just address it maybe, Karen, by saying licensed by this? Oh, no, you don't want to be licensed by the state because.
You do for.
Well, so right now, any, like Keno, I'm sure is licensed by the state separately, but as far as fundraising activities, it's licensed through the state police and it can only, you have to get a license and it can only be for fundraising. So, you know, like a business cannot legally have bingo. Like if you have a bar, you cannot legally have bingo at the bar. All, according to the state police license, all raffles, you know, anything you buy a ticket for, it's all related to fundraising.
So let's just back up to the purpose of this. We don't want someone to open a casino.
That's what we have, yeah, that's what we're, I believe that's what with this definition was done for originally, was to prevent casinos, which people were very interested in looking at Block Island as a possibility some 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's possible. I think what ended up happening was you put in a strict prohibition in the whole town that there's no gambling or gambling facilities allowed, period. That exists right now. What didn't happen is nobody ever defined those terms. So as part of this idea of let's go through all those strictly prohibited uses, gambling facilities, motels, all the everything in the list, we don't have a definition for this stuff. So this is what we're doing now, is trying to figure out, okay, well, what is gambling facilities? So we can certainly exempt things. We can also make it clear that fundraising, so long it's properly permitted, is okay. We can certainly carve out exceptions.
Yeah, I think this one needs to be looked at,
Yeah.
since we've come up with a number of different concerns that, and we're not going to approve this tonight anyway. I'd like to have this come back to us rewritten, so it's clear we're talking about casinos and so forth, and not the local fundraiser to prohibit them from selling lottery tickets or raffles or whatever. So,
But I think
Yep.
if you frame it in some way where establishments that have licenses from the state for whatever, like is a lottery ticket gambling? I think by definition it is. Keno's gambling. But let's say the grocery store, there's places out here that sell those things. It's a license from the state.
There's that last sentence, Chris, whose location and or right to operate is preempted by state law. Do those fall under that?
Preempted. Right?
no, the right to operate is
So-
preempted by
so
state law.
Including, so keep that last line, but
So if you have the right to do it,
you keep. See, I thought Keno was a brand. I don't really.
Yeah, I
know
don't
what it
really.
is. I don't know.
So how it would read is if you go like, it's about 3 lines up where it says, but not limitation. I don't know why that says it. If we change it to, but not including, everything after that would be exempt. And
Okay.
it would, and then it would say, so it would say bingo's exempt, keno's exempt, raffles are exempt, video poker exempt. And then right at the end, you kind of got that catch-all on state law where it says whose location and or right to operate is preempted by state law. So it sounds like all of the things you're talking about, fundraising, raffles, keno, bingo, those would all be exempt because from this prohibition, because they could go get a state permit.
Okay, so if you will redo that for next time,
Super Bowl raffles.
okay. All right,
Bummer.
any other comments?
No.
Okay, number 8.
8 is motels, which are prohibited currently. There is an existing definition for motel. The next one, number 9, is amusement parks, amusement rides, commercial rifle ranges and field houses. All of those are currently prohibited. There are existing definitions for amusement ride. There is no definition for amusement park. And there's also no definition for a rifle range or field house. And we have suggested some language which is underlined. Number 10, dumps and
Wait,
sanitary.
let's- any other questions on page 3 before we flip over to number 4?
No.
No, no questions? Okay,
Well, that's just the definition. It's not,
these are definitions, right?
yeah, I'm just making sure that you're not like banning field houses.
They're already banned.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. We have one. There's a prohibition on field houses?
Yes, section, your ordinance section 111, number 9 bans field houses.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that. I have to tell you the truth, I did not know that. Okay,
So by definition, though, we have a field house. If I'm reading this definition, it's called the gymnasium.
So you do not currently
No,
have a
that's a
definition of field
gymnasium.
house? That's the problem, is that you've banned something, but you've never defined it. So what we're doing here is we're defining it. So we would add language, we would add a definition, so people go down and they say, oh, number 9, a field house is not allowed. Well, what is it? What is a field house? Is what I have actually prohibited or not? So that's what you're adding, is just a definition.
Right, I understand. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the last part of it. Such a facility can also provide fitness club, swimming pool, snack bar, health and fitness items, sports facilities. It's something that this community's been talking about for 30 years. And there's a prohibition on it, so why are we talking about it? Like,
we're just giving a definition.
I'm saying we just eliminate that from the definition. So like, if we wanna, like, this community for a long time has been talking about a recreation center / health club / place to.
A community center.
Fitness club, right?
Yeah,
So
we
whether
were calling
you,
it a community
yeah,
center.
so whether you allow it or prohibit it, you should, especially if it's something you're talking about allowing, you should have a definition for it.
So
And
this
then
is
when
just-
it comes time and you want to allow it, you would just strike, the zoning ordinance would be amended to strike field houses from number 9.
In other words, she's not prohibiting it, she's just
She's defining it.
I just thought, I was just told that field houses are prohibited.
They are.
It's-
I'm not changing that, is what,
I understand needing the definition. I get this
Yeah.
part. But didn't you just say that they were prohibited? And we
They are.
didn't have a definition for field house.
correct.
So my point is, all right, it's prohibited. We're defining field house, but we shouldn't define it in the framework of things that this community has been asking for, because then it would be prohibited.
No,
know,
that's not true. So whether you prohibit it or allow it, you still want to define it. So it might be prohibited now with a definition, but say in 6 months, this conversation that you're talking about actually comes to fruition and this beautiful new field house is allowed. What would happen is you just have to go back into the ordinance to strike it from a prohibited use under section 9. But it would still need to be defined. So, and maybe this will help. The definitions that we're talking about, the language that you see underlined here is here in this location for your convenience. It is not staying here. It is going in a definition section. So we're not putting this together in a way that's going to say number 9, amusement parks, amusement rides, field houses are prohibited. And right after that, how it's defined. That's not true. The definition sections that we're talking about, that's the underlying language. Once it's approved by you, we'll go in a definition section. I just put it all together so it's easier for you to read and you're not having to jump back and forth.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Okay, anything else on number 3, page 3 before we go on?
Not for me.
All right, page 4.
Number 10 is dumps and sanitary landfills. You do have existing definitions for that. 11, storage or manufacture of toxic or hazardous materials. You do have existing definitions for that. 12 is junkyard, same thing. There is an existing definition. 13 is chemical and bacteriological laboratories. You do not have a definition for laboratory, so there is some language proposed there. Any questions on that one?
But can I go back to number 11, even though it's already in place? I thought air should be included, meaning substances that are discharged into air as well as land or water.
You could, but I think you're covered by or other hazard to human health. Oh, I see what you mean, but right after that, it says if such substance or mixture were discharged to land or waters. Yeah, I think that's a legitimate change. We could make that change because it's an existing definition already in your ordinance. That's simple.
Yeah, I think that makes it clear. Yeah,
Okay.
good. Okay.
Make that note. Any other questions on that one?
No.
Any other question? I think we were on 13.
13.
No questions. 14
No.
is raceway. You don't have a definition for raceway. Any questions on that one?
No.
15 is game rooms. You do have an existing definition of game room. 16 is asphalt manufacture or refining, except as necessary on a temporary basis for resurfacing island roads. You do not have a definition for asphalt refining, and there's some proposed language there. Any questions?
No.
Okay, any questions on anything on page 4? Okay, then we'll go on to page 5.
Number 17, petroleum refining. There's no definition for that. There is a proposed definition there. Any questions on that one?
No.
18 is commercial kennels. There is an existing definition. 19 is car, moped, jet ski, and other motorized vehicle rental. There is no definition for motor vehicle. So there is a proposed definition there, which is taken from your town code section 12.1. So there is a definition that exists. It's just not in your zoning ordinance. You can certainly adopt the same definition in your zoning ordinance if you want. Any questions on that one?
No.
20 is commercial hog raising. There's no definition currently, so there is some draft language there. Any questions on that?
No.
No, not sure we
20
need it, but let's leave it in.
Let's continue to prohibit it. 21 is vending machines. There's no definition for a vending machine, so there's a proposed definition there. Any questions on that?
No.
22 is penal institutions. There is no definition, so there is one proposed. Any questions there?
No.
23 is parking or use of trailers, shipping containers, etc. There is no definition for shipping container. However, the planning board has approved but not yet enacted a definition. So that definition is in the works and a copy of it is there.
Can I just make a little comment? In line 5, the words large box goes against the state regulations in the sense that it's nebulous. How large is large?
Yeah. That's great. I can certainly take a look at that and see where your other, the other amendment is in the process and maybe clarify that.
Okay, April. Okay,
Just make a note.
any other questions?
No.
Okay. Go ahead, Karen.
23A is livestock or other agricultural purposes. There is no definition for livestock. There's also no definition for agricultural, and there are proposals for both of those terms there. Any questions on 23A?
You did put a little note to the side that said We can decide if we would like to include bees as part of this definition.
Yes. It looks like there's an exclusion for bees,
Yes.
but you can certainly change that if you want to allow bees.
I think excluding bees is fine. I don't know how everybody else feels, but since you waited a note that, I did want to bring it up. Okay, I think nobody disagrees with that.
Karen, I just have a question for you. Do any of these definitions that we're putting in, I know they're all listed under prohibited uses,
Mhm.
but do they come up in other places in the ordinances where it would be important to take in the context of how they're being used?
That's a great question. I would have to go through and check that, and I can certainly do that for the next round. And maybe that can be part of the next conversation, and I'll make sure to make a point of that. So you'll
That
have
would
that
be
additional
helpful.
context.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay.
Forgive me, just make a quick note.
Just one quick question, Marty.
Sure.
Excuse my voice. Is there any kind of limit you want to put on livestock? A cattle, for example, how much land does a particular animal need to be raised? Does a cow need 1/4 of an acre per cow, for example? Or wouldn't that not make sense in definition? Is it too limiting in terms of these are just definitions?
My advice would be, those are just definitions, and since it is a prohibited use right now, it's something that I would put a pin in, and if it is ever allowed or allowed in any other context, I would include those sort of regulations in whatever ordinance is drafted to regulate it.
But just so we're clear, I'm pretty sure in this context, we're saying that trailers, shipping containers are allowable if you're using them for livestock. Am I reading that right?
That's possible. Hold on.
It falls under 23. Following uses of trailers shall be exempt from this prohibition: livestock and other agricultural purposes, transport of machinery, equipment and materials, trades purposes.
Yes.
As outlined. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, that is correct. So I misspoke. So in that case, yes, that would be subject to 23. But I think the conclusion stays the same. I don't think you want to get into regulatory language in the definition. If there's some other ordinance section that governs the actual use itself, that's where you would want to put those limitations, acreage, things like that. Any other questions on 23A? 23B is transport of machinery, equipment, or materials. There's currently no definition for equipment, and there's one proposed there. Any questions on that one?
Oh, you want to use the microphone?
I have a question about that. In these definition and changes, I did not see anything about boat trailers, which hold boats in many yards on Block Island. I had a question about boat trailers. In all these definitions, I haven't seen anything specifically related to boat trailers. So does that include transportation of equipment, even though it might be sitting in your yard for 9 months of the year?
Unlikely. No, it's unlikely. I think, off the top of my head, I think this section 111 is intended to prohibit nuisances. And I don't believe that your ordinance seeks to prohibit boat trailers as nuisances. What we're talking about here and in discussing trailers is the idea that in certain circumstances, trailers for specific uses are allowed. I don't know if Jen has any other information on that, but that would be my general thought, that a boat trailer just wouldn't fall under a general prohibition as a nuisance.
Good point.
I don't remember, I can recall at any time there was a discussion about boat trailers being prohibited.
Aren't these just definitions? So amended, right?
Clarity.
Clearly,
Excuse me, I'm sorry,
yeah.
Jen. Yeah, sorry.
These are just
this-
definitions.
So these changes would not impact the fact that boat trailers are allowed or not allowed. Whatever it is now, that will stay as is. Nothing will change as
I
with
just, I
respect to
keep
boat
getting
trailers.
confused because I keep hearing the word prohibition pop up and I'm like,
Yeah.
why?
Because that's the section that you're reviewing.
Right.
So
but-
you have a list
are-
of
am I assu-
prohibited,
Like, we're going over definitions though. We're not
right,
going over
because
the fact.
in
it's-
the list itself,
Right.
okay, so pick any word, any term, and you don't have a definition. So if someone comes in and submits a zoning complaint on a gaming, and we don't have a definition, or amusement ride,
Right.
I see.
that we didn't have.
So you need
a
the definition, intention.
We
Correct.
need the definition, but like
Prohibit.
livestock is under prohibition when you don't have a definition for it.
No. this
Correct.
is-
Context of this one is different because
Alright.
you're
Right,
allowing,
that's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
allowing.
right.
And
so
you'll
part of
remember
it
that-
is prohibited, but then this is the exception, so that's.
And you will remember that this came up, recently, both with the amusement park, amusement ride, matter, and also with, tents and storage containers. There was, some argument about what was prohibited and what wasn't, and it didn't necessarily come down to the fact that certain things, amusement rides, tents, storage containers were prohibited. That was clear. What wasn't clear was the definition of those terms. And that's how this, this conversation started. And it came to you to look through all of those prohibited uses under section 111 and figure out, well, how do you want to define them? So that both the planning board and the zoning board going forward will have a better understanding when people come to you or Jen has to issue a notice of violation. It makes it easier to know what are we talking about in terms of what's prohibited and what's not.
You ask that question? Okay. Okay, any other comments, questions?
Going back to the boat trailers, do you
Okay.
want to address that somewhere?
The definition of?
I think you probably would want to have it defined
Put it under trailers, under.
under
Number
trailers
3, after tents.
At boats.
and just say, or under boats and say that boat trailers are not, are not prohibited.
I think you want to just define them.
I think you just want to define it.
Yeah, you
Because
don't
then it
need to
becomes a
define a
zoning
boat
issue.
trailer. We
No.
all know what that is.
Yeah.
To
Right?
use the definition with intention to prohibit use. Is that right?
This is why I'm like,
It's a little bit about the cart before horse.
yeah.
Okay,
The total crap of it. Why we're gonna define it?
Because
Well, why are we defining boat trailer? Is there a prohibition on trailers right now? Well, there's no
Okay, well,
prohibition.
I think you
Yeah.
should read 23, because if you read 23, it doesn't, maybe boat trailers are not permitted. I mean, they're not,
I would say we would put in somewhere that a boat trailer is permitted.
right, it's silent. on boat
Yep.
trailers.
Yeah.
So if you're permitting them, then
Karen, can you add that in somewhere under 23?
Yes.
That we would, that boat trailers are permitted.
but at some point you may want to
And at some point, we may want to.
look at that and say, are you allowing them? So if a neighbor has a boat on a trailer 2 feet from your property line, is it allowed to sit there for 20 years?
Well, what if it's
I don't know. I mean,
trailer
that's up
that
to
had
you.
motorcycles on it? Or like,
We are going to use the word boat trailer, so we
well,
don't get into the
motorcycle
other.
would be,
flatbed, that's a flatbed trailer. This is what's the purpose of it? Is it like a trailer? is a
Because
trailer,
trailers-
Regardless of what it's carrying. Right? It's a flatbed trailer. It could carry anything. I can put a pull out flatbed. Like.
So just so pay attention to the definition under 20, well, not the definition, pay attention to the prohibition under 23. these things, trailers, shipping containers, and temporary mobile facilities are only prohibited if they're being used for commercial or industrial activity or storage. So your personal boat trailer is not included. If you want to include, you know, if you want to say that, you can, but the way that this reads, the only time these things are considered a nuisance under your ordinance is if they're being used in commercial or industrial activity or storage.
But sometimes it is just a single boat on a trailer that is being used
Yeah.
for commercial, so.
I
So
don't
in
know.
that case-
I know one of
so
my
in that
neighbors
case-
has a boat trailer and he stores his
Vacation.
boat on it all throughout the winter and then in the spring it disappears again and then it reappears again in the fall.
You should look at number 3 too, on page 1. That also mentions trailers.
Okay. Number 3.
You just amended a lot of this.
Yeah. We just finished working on this one.
Right, that's why it's so fresh, but maybe, saying residential. I think we should just take a look at it and we can talk about it again next month.
Okay.
With the trailers. But it's clear that you would like it to be, like you would like for them to be permitted.
Yes.
Commercial or residential, is that your?
No,
I was thinking residential.
so was I, but I need to listen more. I'm not so sure.
I mean, we have a number of places throughout the island where a single boat is on a boat trailer and is stored.
If
over the
it's
winter.
for personal use and it's not commercial or industrial, you're already covered.
Oh, for personal use, we're already covered?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we
Maybe
have-
we ought to state that so it's a little clearer.
It says
Yeah, I
that,
was
it's
just
the only thing
wondering if we
that's,
should
it's
have-
prohibited, the only time it's
Oh,
prohibited
sorry.
is for commercial or industrial.
Okay. Well,
Well, it does on number 3,
I was gonna say.
Three- 3 is
Number-
not the same kind of trailer. 3 is a 3 is a habitable, habitation, trailer for habitation. Blah, blah, blah. Trailers are mobile homes for residential and residential accessory use. It's not trailer for towing a boat.
Oh, okay. So that's a different kind of,
For housing.
okay. Then I'd say let's take a look at it and come back with a suggestion for us for next month.
Great.
Because we clearly do feel that a residential boat trailer is probably already in use and probably more than acceptable, as long as it's within the setbacks of the.
But that's already permitted. The question is, should we allow commercial?
Right, 'cause sometimes it's just
Boats.
one boat.
Big
that
deal,
they
Yeah.
right?
Go on a fishing charter or something and it's, we're not talking like a fleet of boats.
So we should
So I don't know.
talk about it.
Okay, well, look, make some recommendations
you
for
should
us
add-
for next month. Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, well, I think you should add that the boat has to be registered or something like that. So people don't just have an unregistered boat sitting on a trailer in their lawn for years, you know, maybe something to, I don't know,
Like registered and insured or something, right?
something, yeah, that,
That's a good
that,
idea.
you know,
Yeah.
that you know that you know that it's in use.
Okay,
Right,
know?
right.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's probably similar language about the abandoned cars
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, same sort of
on
thing.
number 1.
Yeah, this kind of going back to
I
number
don't know
1
anything
as
about
well.
those, but are boats required to have a registration or a license or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
trailers.
Okay, so we could require that without a problem. Okay,
I haven't given this a ton of thought yet because it just came to mind as we are talking about all this, but the issue that I personally would see as a nuisance is if someone in a residential zone started renting out space for people to store their personal boats. So you all of
Oh.
a sudden had a whole bunch of,
yes,
and I actually was thinking the same thing with the, with number 1, if you have a bunch of rental vehicles, mopeds, something like that being stored
Okay,
in a
for,
residential zone. And I don't know if that's addressed somewhere else. I didn't know that. I know we're just working on the definitions right now, so I didn't want to confuse the
Yeah.
issue, but that was a question I had for you later, Jen, was about whether that's addressed somewhere in the ordinance. So I don't mean to confuse the point.
but we could
but
put the word
that's something
personal
that
in, which would eliminate the questions that you're concerned about. If you use a boat trailer for personal use.
Yeah, but that's, the neighbors, could be the neighbor's personal use is what she's saying.
Well,
No.
no, I'm thinking about someone who's storing,
Somebody who's,
other people's boat,
Yeah.
or something.
So it's the neighbor's personal use.
no. Then-
Right, it would be a commercial use of a residential area, and so
Which
I
is
just want to
probably
make sure that
prohibited.
that's covered in some way. That's what came to mind for me with all this. So if we're rethinking this, that's what
Okay.
came to mind, and I just wanted to make the comment.
Okay, good.
I know when we've looked at this in the past, if they're registered or there's an inspection sticker on the windshield. And it's residential, so if I store my car at your house for the winter and it's inspected.
But didn't we have a number that limited?
I thought there was
I thought there was a limit of like 2.
oh, no, there was a limit on junk cars.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. There's a, I
Yeah.
remember somewhere in there.
Right,
And I-
this number 1 is addressing. more junk
It
vehicles.
was junk vehicles, so
Okay.
that's why I didn't want to get totally into it,
Yeah.
but
Okay,
it's just a question that I have that I wanted to,
It's a great question.
that's a good
It-
question.
and here I am bringing it.
That's fine. Okay, we add that to the list for Karen to look at and make recommendations.
Can
And,
I chime in on that one? I think
Yes, you
that
can.
there is a distinction here on, I think what Claire's talking about and what we're focused on with these amendments. So, you also have a use table. And, your use table sets forth all of those uses. Like, for example, if you were to have a building and you wanted to rent space for, boat storage, that would be a use that is allowed in certain zones and not in others. So just I kind of put that out there as an extra layer to what we're talking about, because in certain circumstances, there could be uses that maybe we don't want in some zones, we want in others. Those would not be what we're discussing here. What we're discussing under section 111, general prohibitions, are really those things that the town has felt are a nuisance and should be prohibited in every zone across the board. That's so to the extent that helps and doesn't make things more muddy, just know that in certain cases you do have a use table, and it sounds like rental of space, winter storage of boats would more likely be a use code in your table. If that's something you wanted to prohibit, that's kind of a different conversation. At some point after we get these definitions done, we can certainly go back and add it as a nuisance. I'm not sure that's what you want to do. It sounds to me like it's more like a use code in your use table, allowed in some zones, not in others.
okay,
Thanks, Karen. That's helpful.
Any other questions on 23? 23A on livestock?
No.
Moving down to 23B. Transport of machinery, there is no definition of equipment. So there's some language there. 24 has to do with the use of galley leach fields. And there is an existing definition of galley leach field, and we have put it there for you to take a look at if you feel the need. There's also an existing definition of major repair of an ISDS, which we've included for you. Number 25.
Wait.
Oh.
I had a minor comment on number 24.
Okay.
They're using the negative of one word to define another word, meaning, for example, the word major repair is defined as not a minor repair. To me, that's not a definition.
Yeah, that's good.
I got a chuckle out of that.
I'm just looking, I wanted to know, sometimes they do that if there is a definition of minor, they'll say in the major that it's excluding minor. But yeah, I can look at that and make sure that that's clear.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, go, number 25.
25 is underground storage of petroleum products. There is no definition currently for underground storage. So there's some language underlined there for you to consider as a potential new definition. Any questions on that one?
Yes, please. I'm going to the last two lines, starting with the parentheses. Including the volume of underground pipes connected thereto is 10% or more beneath the surface of the ground. 10% of what? It's confusing to me.
It's the volume. I can turn that a little bit to make it clearer. I think what it's saying here is it's the volume of all of that stuff. So it's all of the combination of the tanks, the pipes, all connected together, and the volume of which is 10% or more beneath the surface of the ground. So it's trying to draw a distinction
see
between
what you
what's
mean.
underground and what's not, but I can make that easier to read.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, 26.
Forgive me just a second. 26 is drive-through windows, currently prohibited in all of the island. There is no definition for drive-through window currently. So there's some underlying language there for you to take a look at as a potential definition. Any questions on that?
Yeah, if I could just ask, I hear Ken saying it, and I was thinking it also.
Yeah.
I heard Ken LaCoste referring to it, and I was worried also in number 25, it says gasoline, it doesn't say propane. I have like large tank of propane underground here, and this does not say, I mean, oil is no longer stored below ground, but propane is.
Okay,
Not.
I can add that.
Oh, I didn't know propane could be below ground.
I didn't know that either.
I didn't know that either because mine's above ground. Okay. All right, we'll add propane.
Thank you.
Any other questions on 25?
No,
Any questions on 26, drive-through windows?
no.
27 is the landing and takeoff of aircraft. There is no definition of aircraft. There is one there in the underlined language. Any questions? 28 has to do with electronic games of chance or sweepstakes. There is an existing definition of gaming device pursuant to a recent amendment on August 21st, 2024. That definition is there for you. And any questions on that one?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Going back to page 5, you have a note down at the bottom. It says section 516 is gaming devices and gaming tables, and section 515 is trade trailers. Should there be an amendment to correct this typo? And I don't know what the typo is.
Yeah, that typo is actually already being fixed under
Okay, so that's
the
done.
10 ordinance that you're working on, or the council's
Okay.
working on. That's being fixed as a part of that.
Okay, so that takes care of that. And then on page 4, you asked us to consider whether the town would like to limit more firearms rather than only rifles, and can change the language to shooting range and change the definition accordingly.
Yes. For some reason, the way it was prohibited as a rifle range, I believe. I'm just trying to get to it.
Yeah. it's
Margie,
the
what
top of
page is that
4.
on? 4.
Yep. It's the top of page 4.
Yes. So the way it was prohibited as commercial rifle range. I don't know that it would be too confusing. A shooting range and a rifle range are pretty close. I think both would be prohibited clearly, but if you wanted to do it, you could change the term rifle range to shooting range.
I would go for changing it to shooting range. How does the rest of the board feel?
On island practice facilities.
I don't think so.
Not that I know of.
I hope not.
Yeah. So the police have one.
Okay. So what you're saying is that would not be a good idea?
No.
I'm just saying you should be aware of that, that's all.
What about shooting range and exempting the police department?
You could do that. You could also do, the definition that is being proposed here is pretty broad and is really just an area or structure designed to discharge firearms. We could make that, we could limit that. Well, actually, no, it says commercial rifle ranges. So what I would do is I would change this. I would keep the prohibition as is, commercial, change it to shooting. So it would be commercial shooting range, and then make it clear in the definition that it is again for commercial use, not for military, law enforcement, anything else.
Okay. I could go with that. How does the rest of the board
Mhm.
feel?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. No, I would not allow private. Okay, going back to any of the pages here, any questions from the board?
No.
And then I'll see if there's any from the audience. This is your last chance to make any comments before we do the next revision. Okay, any questions or concerns from the audience?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I have one other thing.
Okay,
Just,
go ahead.
sorry, I was just looking back at my notes. When we talk about aircraft, I was just wondering if there's any mention of drones in our ordinances and whether that's something we need to care about or that's something that the FAA at the airport cares about. But when they were talking about the takeoff and landing of aircraft, 27 on the last page, it was something that I thought of and I didn't know if that was something that we want to think about.
It's a great question. And I honestly haven't had a lot of experience with drone ordinances. Peter, have you run into this in your travels at all?
Not yet, but I know it's a hot button thing the last few years.
Yeah, I think it's coming. But you're right that the FAA is definitely involved in regulating. I don't know whether your ordinance says anything about it, but my guess is it doesn't. I can do a quick, hold on, tell you right now.
Before next, since we're gonna meet again in April to do this, why don't you take a look at whether or not we have anything on drones and make a recommendation to us?
I'd
So
be
there
kind
is-
of curious
I
what,
just checked, there is no drone. The word drone
Okay.
does not show up in your zoning ordinance.
Okay,
I'd be curious what a place like Westerly, like, do they have anything in their ordinances about it? Since they also have the same kind of airport. I just wondered if there was anything local. I know there are FAA regulations, but I was wondering if there was any local. Mhm.
I missed that comment. What was that? I can't hear on the mic.
Arlene, is the button pushed on?
It wasn't. There's FAA regs that says that you can't have a drone within, I think it's 1,000 feet of an airport, and there's height limitations as well.
And we need drones for when we have fires on the island. And I think they were used with the Harbor Inn fire.
If not, they certainly been used with others this fall, winter. Go ahead.
Because I have been told, I live right next to the airport pretty much, that if the airport is uncontrolled, then drones are not really controlled either. And we have an uncontrolled airport. When you start asking questions, you get a lot of different, sometimes contradictory answers about these things. So I'm just putting that out.
Okay, in other words, we need to check.
So
Yeah,
it
I've
does,
heard that, and there's lots of conversations because of the drones in New Jersey. And
Yeah. There's lots of
so it
conversation
does
about
look
that.
like the town of Narragansett adopted something, which is interesting. I'll get a copy for your next meeting. I'll give it to Jen. But what they did, it looks like they prohibit drones from being deployed, launched, or flown in any airspace within 500 feet over the town beach during the beach season. any large venue, special event over public parks, roads, and public facilities during large venue, special events. So something to consider. I can pull those ordinances as examples. I'll look at Westerly too, and I'll give this to Jen, so you'll have them for your next meeting.
Yeah, 'cause this is something we might want to put into the ordinances, not just the definition. Because I think our ordinances should cover something to prohibit certain areas, but we also want to make sure it's allowed to be used for surveillance for example, fires, if they're searching for missing persons and other stolen vehicles. So yes, I think we will need something for our ordinances. So if you'll add that to your to-do list, Karen, that would be great.
I will.
Okay. One last chance for everybody. Anything else we want to comment on the definitions before we send it out for revision? Okay, then hearing none, I will put this on the agenda for April. All right, next thing, outdoor lighting ordinance. Discuss and act on the amendment to zoning ordinance, section 512, the outdoor lighting ordinance. Jen, will you talk about that, please?
Peter, Karen, and I are going to look at the proposed draft and the zoning ordinance and see if we can merge them into one document if possible, and keep it under the zoning ordinance. So we're gonna need some time to do that.
So again, we'll put it on the agenda for April. If you have any thoughts or concerns, you can send Jen a quick email later in the week so that she'll have that to take a look at when they go to try to merge the ideas of the two different documents. Okay? All right. And number 5 is this is just an announcement. The advisory committee would like to bring to your attention that from March 17th to April 7, 2025, a draft of the hazard mitigation and flood management plan will be available on the town's website or the project page for review and comments. And a public hearing on the draft plan will be held at the town council's April 7th, 2025 meeting. And it's newshoreham.gov /437/hazard-mitigation-flood-management plan. I'm hoping that the newspaper will put something in about this, since I'm sure people on Zoom are going to find this hard to follow. But it will be on the website starting for March 17th. Okay, and going back to Historic District, next on our agenda is a discussion with the property owners regarding the expansion of the district. Additional areas included in the New Harbor commercial area of Ocean and Beach Avenue, Horn Neck Road heading north to Mosquito Beach, and Connecticut Avenue to a section of Old Town Road. There will be an opportunity to speak, or you could always send an email or letter. Stuff here. There are basically 3 sections that we're going to be talking about. First one on the list would be the New Harbor area. You have a map that shows that section. We'll just be starting on Beach Avenue, going west to Ocean Avenue to the West Side Road. Everybody found that on their maps?
I have an extra copy if anybody wants one.
Yeah.
There's a copy up here too.
Thank you, Jen, by the way.
That's great. Okay. Okay, well, let's start. Arlene is here from HTC. Would you talk about why you were interested in having these areas added to the historic district? That would work from there.
Just that area that you mentioned, or
You do it whichever way you want.
we had basically, I think, 3 areas
Yes.
that we want to add. And this particular district is kind of spotty. There's a couple houses that are in the district and a couple that aren't. And the committee felt that the consistency of having it up to Old Town Road would be better and easier. And there's some really nice houses, old houses on that street.
All right, questions, comments? Okay. Okay.
Okay, get ready. I was gonna write this out. I started and bored myself, so. Some of you may or may not know zoning was originally put in the 1960s. There was one commercial zone which ran from the old harbor to the new harbor, residential C, residential B, and residential A. And a coastal zone that was always kind of dicey. No one was exactly sure. That sort of floated back and forth. So we move up to the mid 80s, and well, Howell Conant tried to get his historic zoning before. It was extremely complicated. I think he modeled it on Nantucket, which he went as far as deciding what color paint you could have, which wasn't going to happen here. And but he did kind of get the idea going. So when historic district was put in place, it was the commercial zones and the residential C zone. And that's really it's kind of a certain era of houses that were built when the commercial, when commerce, when Block Island opened to the world. The hotels, the houses that weren't the old farmhouses, but weren't, modern, quote unquote, because it was the 80s. We were also just beginning to get some of the questionable architecture that was not Block Island vernacular. So in 1989, this is where this kind of all fell apart. In 1989, the town did a very comprehensive review of zoning. And that's why we have all the zones we have today. The Old Harbor Commercial, the New Harbor Commercial, the Service Utility, the mixed use, the residential zones. But nobody ever thought to realign HDC with the new zoning. So some of these things that were in, and I don't really know how to articulate this, but I feel, my personal perspective is, if you're going to be in HDC, you should be in, the zones shouldn't be, oh, I'm in this, my neighbor is in residential C, I'm in mixed use, my neighbor's in HDC, I'm not. It doesn't make any sense. It makes it more difficult. It's purely housekeeping. It seemed really simple and really easy and really fundamental to me. We have, and the plat maps came in somewhere in the middle of that. Around 1980, plat maps came in. Imagine a world without plat maps. We didn't have them before 1980. So there were these really odd outliers that resulted from that. Residential C was 200 feet back from Ocean Avenue. And then when they went over to plat maps, there was one lot that was encompassed by the power company lot. It's the old house over the power company. And it's the one thing that's not in HTC because it's more than 200 feet back, even though it's within I really need a really big map for anybody to have any idea what I'm talking about. Forgive me, I've been working on this for a very, very long time. So I think when I got on HDC, one of the first things I thought was, wait a minute, the Barrington isn't in HDC. The Barrington's on the corner, it's on the corridor. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed something. There was another proposal by a previous HDC to extend the boundaries, But they went so far, I was on the town council then, and they went so far as to include the cemetery. And we all thought on the council that this was a bridge too far. We weren't going to have people having to apply for HDC for a gravestone. So, and that was the last time I think it really came up. I bring it up periodically and people go, right, fine. Go away. We don't want to listen to Block Island history. And I've got the podium now. So we have been extraordinarily fortunate. There are houses that I think people think are in HDC, particularly Connecticut Avenue. I'm Sam, I am going to use your dad as an example. John Kretschmer has a house that is not an HDC. It has probably been as well and painstakingly kept the way, probably better than we would have required it to be done. But we're lucky. Hopefully Sam and Katie will not let that go, but we can't rely upon that forever. The Wagon Seal Farm the Wagon Seal house on the corner, which was the Willis Farm, is not in HDC. That's where I was coming from. I'm just one member of HDC. I wanted everything to be aligned, to not have these boundaries going down the middle of zones, to catch some of these places, which, again, we have been so lucky that they have been so well maintained by the property owners. There may even be, if some of them are objecting to this idea, there may even be some way of working this out for as the length of the time they've owned it. They've done such a good job. It's probably not legal, but I'm not interested in. That's up to the lawyers to decide. So that's where I came from. Other people on the board had other ideas about what should be added, what shouldn't be added. I just wanted to keep it within this town, what's gone to hell since some people left? That's all I wanted. Other people were looking more broadly than I, and including areas that I just hadn't thought of because I wasn't thinking in those terms. And that's, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate the history. Bill, please.
Bill McComb. I'm not for or against. I'm just trying to, for my edification, understand where we're at. Has the Historic Commission met as a group and given
Yes,
recommendations?
This came from Historic District originally.
So this is a recommendation from the Historic Commission.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's why Arlene is here today.
Okay, I just didn't
She
see it in the
shared
meeting.
it,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Do you know, when did that come? Do you know?
This came a couple of months ago. It's taken us several months to get the plat maps and everything set up for us to take a look at. We were going to do it last month and then we didn't quite get organized enough. And then the notification to all of the residents affected by this, that notice was a little late in going out. So that's why we rolled over from last month to this month.
Was that the meeting that Historic had? Historic had a meeting on November 25th and they voted to send this to planning?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Ken Lacoste, High Street, and also Ocean Avenue. I own a property across from Area 1, proposed area. I just had a question about the actual line of demarcation. It shows it as across the street from my property. I'm just wondering where the actual district would begin in reference to actual in the ground. As you may or may not know, Ocean Avenue is a town right of way that's 60 feet wide at that point at the hog pen area. And I'm just wondering where the designation of the historic district would begin on that other side of the road from me, and whether or not I would, it would be encroaching on my side of the road, or whether or not it would go up to the edge of the road. Technically, it would be up, if I assume it would be up to the edge of the right of way, which would be 30 feet from the center of the road. I'd just like some clarification on that.
Turn that over to Jen.
think I know the answer to that. I only have, the properties that you have discussed adding, so I think,
I know the plat maps, you know, are designed as a general suggestion, not necessarily you
Yeah,
can't
so
go.
I don't know if Karen can chime in, but usually when a boundary is a right of way, it's the middle of the right of way. Very unlikely, but if the right of way was ever abandoned, then the idea is that entire property across the street from you would be in the historic district, but your half would not. That's the intent of it anyways.
Okay, so then my concern would be then what the historic district demarcation would have in terms of the use of the other side of the road. Now it's used as it's needed because we have a very robust activity down in the New Harbor commercial area. It's being used for parking for the various marinas and businesses that are down there. And I'm just wondering if this would have any implications in terms of the usage of that side, the other side, the west side of the road in that area.
oh, I see what you're, okay, because, so right now, this is in historic, this would be added, so this would show up. I mean, it could also be in the district.
Exactly.
So that entire Ocean Ave would be in the district.
Right. Right, so the area, the red line is.
So.
Oh, you're saying my side.
Say from, if this were to pass, this entire area would be in the district.
No.
Is that what you're, this is currently in historic district, and this is being proposed, this side.
Oh, so it's already in the district.
This.
I think what you're saying is it's already in the district.
Already in it? Oh, okay, all right. Takes care of that. It wasn't indicated on the maps, I didn't. Right. Oh, I see, okay. I was thinking,
So there's an area that's already.
right,
there,
okay,
Okay.
all right.
But the
Okay,
point-
so then my next question, thank you for the clarification. My next question is, I guess, the reason for adding that area across the street is because of the aesthetics and prevention of future building, I assume, and probably the prehistoric remnants that are there.
Yeah, usually.
It's a different piece of property than the one you were discussing, but this is, all of the Hog Pen and Ken's property, that whole side of the street is in the historic district. Mimi, but across the street, it's not, and it's undeveloped. And so we're concerned about having both sides of the street in the historic district, because it's a very important street. When people come into New Harbor, that's the street they walk down to go to to town. And our thinking was that the property, excuse me, the properties on the west side of the street should also be in the historic district. Just, the Barrington Inn, we were very fortunate that the DiBiase's built a really nice building where they did. The fire department is in it, in the district, and the power companies in the district. But if you cross the street, it's not. And we just thought it should be a consistent historical district. There are several properties on the west side of the street there that may or may not be for sale, but they're important properties. And we'd hate to see a Butler building go up there.
Questions from the board, and then I'll
Yeah.
introduce it. Any more questions from the audience?
I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I tend to lean in favor of this whole concept. I'm just thinking from a legal point of view, are you leaving yourself up for vulnerable to lawsuits? Meaning, will the people who own the land that has not yet been developed, they could sue our town for being limited in their options for construction. I worry about that. I also, to Ken's point, I think that an existing use or a pre-existing use should be allowed to remain so that nobody is penalized.
I don't know the answer to the first part. But I guess we could check with the town attorney. But it would remain the way it is. We're not forcing anybody to not park there. It's just for building development.
Yeah. So I think in fairness of both sides of the argument, I think you need to spell out what the consequences are in terms of new construction. What are the limitations for
Well,
new
the
construction?
limitations are clear. If they're part of the historic district, there's rules for buildings in the historic district.
Oh, you have those in place already?
Yeah, they're
Oh,
already in
okay.
place.
And they, if
For
they
new
want an
cons-
exception or something, then they have to go to historic district for a discussion and approval, just as they do right now for anybody who's changing their, say their sign or their windows or whatever. So
Right.
they're not, it's not any different than what they're already doing.
They're not really I mean, it's an extra step, but as far as like the size of the building or, I mean, I can't think of an example that they were prohibited from constructing an inn or I'm trying to think of a commercial building that was, if they weren't in the district, they'd be allowed to do. Can't think of an example. But we do have a letter from
Yeah, and I've got one more person I know has a question.
Rosalie and Sean Kiblahan. So they're north of Mosquito Beach, and they are objecting to being added to the district for their properties.
Okay, I was still just doing area 1, so hold that till I get to area, what is it, area 2? Yeah, I think that's it. I got them first and then I'll get to you, Molly. Go ahead.
I think Martha already introduced me. I'm Sam Kretschmer. It's the third house on Connecticut Avenue on the right from Ocean Avenue. I'm for, the conservation of the older houses and buildings, on the island. And Martha pointed out that it is sort of painstaking, like our house, like to keep it in the state that it is. It's not, putting up sheetrock and everything is sort of an emergency repair. And what I'm concerned about is that's all been fine, but what sort of scrutiny if I need to pull a window out or I need to do work that's unique to the house, most of which, I do myself, can I continue to do that if this rezoning or if we're in this new historic district, or am I going to have to, you know what I'm saying? Like, how much will it change things? Like, I think it's a great idea, but on the other hand,
If you're replacing like with like, in other words, you're replacing a window with the same.
Right,
the same,
right.
You don't have to do anything.
I'm not talking about decks or additions or that sort of thing, like,
You would have to get a building
You get the-
permit.
But you
and-
wouldn't have. to
Right,
go to
right.
HDC to get a change.
Right, it
But if you
depends on
change
that.
the window, either design, style, color, whatever, then you might have to go to HDC.
so aesthetically, it's keeping it in the nature of the
Right.
period. Okay. Okay.
What
Or
about,
Apartment or commercial building or
If
whatever.
you're replacing like if your deck is rotten. and
But then
You
the-
need to like
Sorry.
replace deck boards or something,
Right,
porch.
but what about it?
And it's in kind material and it's
Right.
then you.
Same
would-
design, et
You
cetera.
would receive a
But then,
building.
so the other question I have, and also this is not for or against, is why change what's in place right now? I'm just questioning, like, it's been working, is there a problem that
Well, this
has
is not coming
arisen?
from
Like,
us.
like I noticed on Ocean Avenue, the old gas station, they added a second floor on that, which is great.
Yeah, they had to come through, but they had to come through planning.
Right, that being said, I mean, to me,
And through HDC, they did all that.
yeah, did they have to jump through amazing hoops to do it? Because I think it was an
I
old
wouldn't
gas
say it's
station.
amazing. Yes, there was some.
Okay.
Not amazing.
Okay.
I'm not.
I guess that's all. I mean, so,
He doesn't, not upset about it, or at least he.
Oh, yeah,
he
yeah.
was not upset about it.
so this change is gonna move forward. It's still in question, or is it definitely gonna happen? Or is it?
This will eventually we will make a recommendation to the town council.
Okay.
and they will hold another hearing and.
A public hearing.
Based on what they hear from us and HDC and, other residents, they will either decide to go and approve it, or they will, decide not to.
And are there published sort of guidelines of what the restrictions and so forth actually are once you're in a historic zone, or is it?
Ask Arlene for that.
There are. Okay. No, I understand. I think it's a good thing. It's just,
People want to
It's
know.
separate, that's all.
Yeah.
difficult enough with the whole house and just,
Yeah.
I have a question. Arlene, are you allowed to put an addition on a historic district? You are. Whoa.
I think
But
there's
again,
a
they were trying to have.
misconception with with HDC is it doesn't prevent you from doing work to your house or repairs to your house, but when you want to do like a full renovation, like the Weather Bureau, that was a full renovation. He took that on from top to bottom. Of
Right.
course, HDC is gonna, it's a historic building,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
But if you're putting windows in and in kinds, like you don't need to, HGC's I think is often like, they're like this other board that can like give you a hard time. They're not, like, it's just the step if you're in if you're in the historic district, and I've been in front of them 5 times for different things, and it's 100% reasonable. You want their input. If it's if you're in the HDC, then they might have some input. But they've never been like, scrap those plans. We want to see something that I'm aware of. Right?
Well, to speak to that, my question was, so all the years having discussed it, it's never been a concern about the letter. That's why I'm here. Like, what is this gonna actually change as far as that climate of everything?
Yeah.
What is the change that's gonna happen? Okay, is it?
Yeah, could you speak to that in terms of your?
Well,
in terms
for
of the
instance-
time it might take to do what you would like to do for changes, and is the HGC already overburdened with the work that they have to do?
No, we're not overburdened.
Should I have any concern?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't think you would. There's somebody on Chapel Street who wants to change the windows on their little house. And they wanted to put on windows that kind of lick the muntin and paste it on. And we said no, because we want it to be expressed like these are. And they were not happy about that, but that keeps the character.
But, in again, I'm looking at fairness here. When we have a public hearing, it would make sense if you had something printed out as in terms of what
We have
at
guidelines.
the public hearing, so
Oh.
that, because these questions will come up. That is the driving force behind support or no support,
Right.
to know what the consequences are.
I'll bring the regulations.
Sam has good questions, because this is when came up at the last meeting. My first question was, have all the property owners been notified?
Right.
Right? And I understand 100%. I think Martha said it earlier, is if you look at how some of the existing lines are drawn, there's some areas that are just nonsensical. Like if you look at your area, Connecticut Ave, it's like the lot next to Summer Hill's included, but Summer Hill's not all the way up the street to the corner. But if you go across the street from Summer Hill, that lot's included, but nothing up to the corner is included. And like, so why is the lot across from Summer Hill included and the lot next to it towards Ocean Avenue included? You know what I mean? It was like it's very checkerboard, right? So when they draw the lines out, and like to include, it kind of makes sense, like the New Harbor, where Ken's property is, that entire across the street's not included. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. It's part of the same zone as Ken's property. It's the same zone, commercial zone, but it's not an HDC. One side is and one side is. So I understand the reasoning behind it 100%. I just don't know if all the property owners are going to be.
Well,
So
so far,
45 letters went out.
Yeah.
So all of the property. owners.
There's a whole list, long list that we have that went out to
How
all
many
the
letters
people
do we,
involved. in
anybody
this.
other than Sean?
I've had two people call just to ask like, well, do you have guidelines? What's the process?
Yeah.
And I explained it and that was it. And then one email, objecting to it. That's all I've heard.
So a clarification, if I may. We have a process now, and I don't know how many years this has been in place. But Sam, if you wanted to just replace a window, you're replacing it in kind. All you do is come in, talk to land use. And if there's no issue with it, you're set. You don't have to come to HDC. Yeah. Well, don't just. Yeah, I know. Well, it's been but you're also you're the landowner, and we've always allowed a little leeway that we don't talk about. If you're the landowner, and another, I think an example too, because Bob got the microphone, that Block Island Historic District years ago, long before I was on it, made a sort of a policy decision that we weren't going to be as stringent as a place like the east side of Providence or Nantucket or Newport. And I remember when I wasn't on the HDC, when the National was redone, people complained about the siding on the National. They still complain about it. I think the National is a flagship of the Front Street. I think it looks great. I don't think anybody who comes in here and looks at that building goes, oh my God, it's not original wood. It's insane. We live in a climate where that just would be cost prohibitive and it wouldn't look great the way it does. And we try to work that way. And I think every HDC going forth will do the same thing.
Well, I'll second that because I've gone before HDC to do the 3 parks downtown. And I will have to say that they have worked with us very carefully and very thoroughly to make sure that the parks look appropriate and yet are using all the current amenities that we needed, including putting the bricks in for our fundraiser to pay for it. So, you know, it's not scary. It's fine. Molly, I know you had a question.
So more, not so much a question, but I was a little concerned by the negative tone from a couple of board members about the HDC. And I feel very strongly that the HDC is one of the most important boards that we have. We are a tourist community. We are selling Victorian seaside charm. Now, if you go and you do something that doesn't follow their rules, you're destroying it for everyone, right? So I think you're right. I think the DBASIS did a beautiful job on that inn that's not in the historic district. We should all be pretty grateful for that because but they get it. They get what they're selling. They're selling historical seaside charm. And I mean, this morning there was a fire in the inn next door, right? So if that had been like another situation where the whole inn burned down, we'd be super grateful that it was in the historic district, right? Because we wouldn't want them to put up something that looked like a Marriott. We would want them to put up something that looks like Victorian, cottagey, charming building, right? So, I mean, we see what we have downtown right now with something that's going to go up. I live in virtually the same house that Sam lives in a different part of the island, and it's a hassle. The old houses are really, really hard, but that's not the majority of them anymore. The majority of them have been redone, and we want to make sure that they're redone in a style. And, you know, if somebody wants to sue, let them sue. I don't think that that's a reason not to do something like this. This is a really good idea. I think it supports the homeowners. It gives them excellent guidance as they go through a building project. As Chris said, they're not doing anything damaging to the property owner. They're helping them. they're giving them guidance, they're helping the entire community maintain what we want to maintain. So I just hope everybody's not viewing this as a negative thing.
I can just say in 30 years that I've worked here, we've talked about an island-wide historic district numerous times.
We have.
So
If I
No,
could
I
just
have to
add
say,
to that,
At some point,
a-
I don't think we're quite
I have
ready
to
for
say, I
that,
don't
but
see it
I
as a
will.
negative thing. I'm just asking questions.
So from a legal perspective, if I could just chime in, Rhode Island General
Sure.
Law, specifically 4524.1-22, specifically gives the town of New Shoreham the ability to do this legally.
I mentioned one section, there are two other sections we're also talking about, which I need to mention. Area 2, which is Corn Neck Road from Beach Avenue to lot plat 470. And then Area 3, which is Old Town Road on either side of Connecticut Avenue. So I wanted to get those mentioned for the record. And then Jen, would you mention that one letter that came in, so officially for the record?
So it's the properties owned by Rosalie and Sean Kiblehan, the Sullivan House.
So that would be
the
an area
houses are-
2. Okay. And they did not support this, is that correct?
Yes, they
Okay.
objected to it.
All right. Other questions on the board?
Are you able to share that, Jen?
Yes, I can send it to you.
I'd just be curious.
I mean, the Sullivan House is actually one.
Yeah.
It's one.
Exactly.
Well, they don't,
Do they give you?
What's the
they
other?
don't say
Just-
specific.
Same family.
No, it's just an email that I received before we,
Why don't you just read it, as long as you've got it there?
I did earlier. It's just expanding, north of Mosquito Beach. We do not want our properties included in the expanded historical district.
They don't give any reason why?
It's unclear from the agenda what areas are being considered, where to send the letters, so I just wanted the board to know.
Okay, but they don't give us any reason why they don't like it. Okay.
That's it. We'll take some of it.
Okay. Any questions from, or comments from the audience that I haven't already heard? Okay, any more from the board? Then I will make a motion that we send a favorable suggestion to the town council that they move these 3 sections into the historic district. Area 1, which is Beach, Overton Avenue, to West Side Road, to Area 2, Horn Neck Road, Beach to lot plat 470, and Area 3, Old Town Road on either side of Connecticut Avenue, as depicted in the plat maps that will accompany this. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, further questions or comments?
Just one quick question.
Sure.
Sorry again for my voice.
Yeah,
In
go.
area 1, to Martha's point about including sort of neighbors, is 590 not on it? Why is that? Just because the house architecturally doesn't?
You're talking about 5.
On area 1, near the police station along beach, right
There's
at
a
beach and
UDS stuff.
ocean.
Right, I think we talked about that
Mhm.
and you were gonna revisit
Oh, okay,
that particular property.
okay,
I mean, if we choose to add it on, we can do so.
okay. I was just wondering if HTC could shed some light on.
Well, why don't you show Arlene on the map?
Sure, sure. Yeah,
And
it's just to the south of it.
so make sure we all understand that we're,
Sure, sure. So here's the police. station. Yeah, that one. Yeah, yeah.
No, we didn't want to overreach, but
You're right there. I was just curious.
it makes good sense if you want.
okay, which one did you say again?
590. On Beach Ave.
This one here?
Yeah.
I
But
wouldn't-
they have not been notified.
They haven't been notified, but we could make a recommendation
Okay.
if we wanted to do so. But it's not on my motion, since they haven't been notified, but,
Right?
so any other comments?
No.
Okay.
I hope
All
it
those in
works.
favor, say aye.
I,
One
Anybody
more comment.
opposed?
I just wanted to thank people from HDC coming today. It's really helpful.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Really?
Beautiful.
Okay.
We thank you very much for coming and for listening. And if you guys decide that you'd like to have 590 added on, send us a thing and we'll put it on.
Well, we can wait and send it after.
Well,
But-
if we add that property on and you think you might want to do that, we can hold this for 3 weeks until you have your meeting and then send it on. I just don't want to add it on without a authorization from the HDC.
So it's plat 5 lot 90. Okay. So we could do that. I mean,
So I'll make a motion that if at the next HDC meeting, they decide to add plot 5 lot 90 to the historic district, that the planning board would support that move.
Right.
You have a second?
Sure.
Okay, Socia seconds. Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So you decide that it should be appropriate, we will add that on and then send it on to the town council. And for those of you who are not aware of the process, they will be holding another hearing when it comes before the town council, so that you will have a second chance to have a comment either for or against. So thank you guys very much for
Marie, could I
coming. I
make
appreciate it.
one comment?
Sure.
Could I just ask that when these are being advertised again, that those guidelines, I know they're referenced in the letter, but perhaps there could be a way for people to easily access those so that they have this information about what. Yeah. Great. I just want people to not have to dig through and try to find it and that kind of thing. So maybe that could be provided to people so that they could reference them more easily. Thank you.
Or at least told that they could go to the website. Of course, I don't think the website's all that easy to use, to tell you the truth.
Right.
right, and that process will be
I think
done
you
by
just wanna
the
make
town
it
clerk's
easy.
office when they advertise.
Yeah,
and
that's
all-
good.
and so that's
Or it
a
seems
different
like it's
process.
helpful to help the public, as you say, understand the process rather than
Yes.
just say no.
I think that's not a
Because they
bad
don't
idea
understand.
either, is to
No,
do
that's a
something with
great-
the process.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. No minutes, I take it? Okay. The minutes are not quite ready, so we will roll that over until next month. And anything else for the good of the order? Okay, then I will make a motion that the meeting be adjourned.
Second.
I have a second.
Adjournment.
All those people say aye.
Aye.
I'm not even gonna ask if anyone is opposed. Thank you guys for coming and thanks for coming an hour early. Appreciate it.